What is happening, people? Gav from Roman's Reptiles. Hope everyone's okay. This video is going to be about how I defrost or prepare my rodents to feed off to my ball pythons. Okay. Generally, this channel is about ball pythons, so if that's something that interests you, please consider liking, subscribing. Please comment, ask any questions. I absolutely love it. I do just want to mention the fact that I have got to 100 subscribers, which means the absolute world to me. So thank you very much for everyone that's subscribed. Absolutely love you all. Let's get into it then. So, a couple of tips as well, because I know ball pythons can be notoriously difficult to feed, or they're fussy eaters, shall we say. Now, the first thing that I'd like to mention is I feed my ball pythons pretty much solely on African soft fur rats, and that is two main reasons. If we're going to put it in two reasons, shall we say. The main reason is that is their native food, so they're from Africa. That's where ball pythons originate from. That is genuinely what they're going to be feeding, or one of the sources they're going to be feeding out in the natural world, shall we call it, not in our sort of amazing little reptile worlds that we produce for ourselves. That is actually what they would eat in the wild. So straight away, in their DNA, in their natural instincts, they're going to prefer it. The second reason why I do it, to keep it short, is they are better for your snakes. It's just fact. They're higher in protein and they are much better. The snakes seem to absorb more of it. They poo less. It's not so much of a mess when they do poo. I believe that they take way more of that rodent in, way more of the African soft fur in than what we'd do a fancy rat. There's nothing wrong with feeding your snakes fancy rats. With my breeding females, the big chunky ones, and you'll see some of them in a minute because I'm going to do some feeding, show you how to feed them as well. I might chuck in a bigger, medium-sized fancy rat just to kind of suppress the bigger females. They got a nice, big, tasty appetite. Okay, but let's get straight into it. So the way that I like to prepare my rodents, right? I mean, you can probably hear and see all of mine in the back anyway. I breed my own African soft fur rats, but these are the ones that I've defrosted. Okay, now the way that I've actually done it is I'll take them out beginning of the day, halfway through the day. I'll sit them in this tub. I know the lighting in here is absolutely pants, guys. It's because I've got these weird rope lights that go around the outside of the room, but it's just like a little, I think it's like a cricket tub or something. I leave them in there and I let them defrost. Now, two things are going to happen. One, obviously they're going to defrost. All right. The second thing is that smell. Not everybody keeps their rats in the rodent room. A lot of people don't like that. But that smell from getting them defrost in the room is going to get around the room. It's going to get your ball pythons ready for a bit of food. They're going to start smelling it. And that's another good sort of tip to getting your ball pythons to eat, because they're going to be smelling that all day. Now, one of the things I don't like doing in terms of actually defrosting my rats is putting them in water. Don't know why, I just don't like feeding my snakes wet rats. I just don't think that's what's going to happen in the wild. They're not just going to be soaking wet rats, so I don't like to do that. So this is what I do. I put them in this box, like so. I let them defrost. Now sometimes, if I've left it a bit short, I stick this heat mat underneath here. Now you do want to get a thermostat on there as well, because I've actually melted this pot a little bit before. Lesson learned, I won't be doing that again. But that warms the rats up from the bottom as well. I think you can probably see it better there. And then what I take is a hairdryer. Literally, I take a hairdryer, I slam it in here like this, and I just turn it on, and it gets the rats boiling hot, nice and hot, warmed all the way through, and yet they stay nice and dry, which is what we want. So that's the first step. The second good thing about the hairdryer is it gets that smell. It gets that smell around the room even more. So now they've got a really nice, tasty appetite. They're waiting for that rat. Believe me, they're absolutely waiting for it. So what I'm going to do now is get the camera set up. And I'm going to show you, what I want to do is show you also, which I think is interesting, is different ball pythons. I mean, every animal's got their own personality, right? And I find this with the feeding. So I want to show you the different types of responses that I get from ball pythons. Now, I actually don't get a problem with any of mine eating at all. And I think one of the reasons is because I do have the rats in my reptile room as well. So that smell's always getting around the room. But the second reason that they eat well is because I'm feeding them African software rats. If you can afford it, I appreciate they're a bit more punchy, shall we say, on the price than your fancy rats. Or if you're breeding them, they do not grow as quick, believe me. And you will need quite a few of them. However, I think they're easier to breed than the fancy rats. If you can get a decent supply, if you're just pet quality, or even if you are a breeder, you probably wouldn't be listening to me anyway. But if you've got ball pythons that are a pet, you want to treat it with the best food. Get them African software rats, but be warned, once you've fed them an African software rat, the likelihood is they're probably not going to go back to eating fancy rats. So just be warned of that. But if you want to feed your snake the best food that you can give them, African software rats are going to be the ones for you. Alright, so if you can get a decent supply of them, you can afford it, don't scrimp out. Feed them the African software rats. I find the colour in the snakes better, they feed better, they poo better, shall we say. Trying to find a polite word for that. They'll poo better, and I just think that they're just generally happier and healthier snakes. Right, so let me get on to the feeding. Right, so I've warmed these up, yeah, using the hairdryer through that lid. They are nice and warm. Things that you're going to need, obviously, to feed your ball pythons. Get yourself some decent feeding tongs, right, with a little bit of length on them, because your hand is obviously heat as well. You got to remember, they're heat. They can see like heat. They're heat seekers, right? So if they see your hand, which is nice and warm, it's going to be, they may end up going for that instead. So what I generally do is I'll take a hook and I'll open the pot with that, yeah. Obviously I've only got two hands, so I can't be doing everything at the same time. But I'll take, actually what I might do is just get this set up here, so you can see what I'm about to do. I don't know if it's going to be a decent enough view or whatever, because I'm not really a cameraman. But generally, I want to show you the different types of feeding responses that you're going to get. Now, this girl is breeding, yeah? So, I would recommend using the hook when you open it, because she is going to be at the front of the tub and she is going to want to eat literally straight away. You can see her there. That was actually pretty tame for her, to be fair. But she's obviously got the rat. This, no, it's such a typical thing. I'll sort that out in a bit. But that's my bumblebee, and she's a big breeder female. I'll just leave her in peace. Now what I might do is just come on to the one below, to be fair. We'll just drop it in. She's not quite as feisty. That's my lesser. She is just a straight lesser, but she weighs about 1,800 grams. I'll sort their water bottles out in a second. Another thing that I wanted to say is, if you're struggling with feeding your ball pythons, they will eat better at night. Now, I'm filming this probably about 10, half 10 at night. They will eat better at night. So if you're struggling to get yours feeding, that's one little tip that you can use, is just change the times that you're feeding them. I feed mine on a Sunday and a Wednesday. So Sundays and Wednesdays is my breeder females, but I feed everything on a Sunday. But I'll always feed them late at night because they're nocturnal. one of my breeder females, and this is generally the way that I found it when I switched over to African soft-furred rats. This is generally how they started reacting most of the time. They're just ready to rock and roll. Now you can probably see straight away that she is ready for some food. So that's why I'll try and use a hook to open up the tubs, because you can see she's striking out and she's got it. She's my pinstripe. I don't know if you guys have got racks or not, but you may find that sometimes they do this where they hook onto the front of the that's a bowl again. They'll hook onto the front of the rack. So what I generally try and do is just lift them from the body and just try and tuck them in a little bit. Don't worry, I'll be sorting out that water bowl in a minute. So that's a slightly different, that's your excited sort of feed, and that's why exactly why I say get your hook, because I have had it when I've been opening up the tub with my hand and they've reached over. They haven't actually got me. I mean, obviously we've all been tagged, but they haven't actually got me at that point. But that's why using the hook for the excited feeders is good. You're going to see. I mean, let me feed my male clown now, and you'll see the difference of how nice he is in comparison to her. You can literally open up the tub, and he is beautiful. But he's generally a lot nicer. He generally just takes it reasonably nice and calm. See? No real struggle, no real drama. He is absolutely stunning. He's just a straight clown. But loads of plans for him. Loads and loads of plans. So, I mean, I could show you feeding all of these snakes, but I wanted to keep it reasonably short. If you guys have got any questions, or if you want any other tips on how to get maybe a stubborn ball python to feed, comment below or direct message me. Definitely go over to Instagram if you can, please. It's Romans_reptiles. Please give me a follow. You can keep up with what I'm doing. Also, if you've enjoyed the video, people, please like and subscribe. It means the absolute world to me. It really spurs me on to keep going with these things. But thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you on the next video.